Up next on today's Wild West, he's known for his acclaimed rawhide braiding and his exceptional horses.
We love the horse, we love to work with them, and we love the tradition.
We'll visit Nate Wald at his Montana ranch.
They said, "I think you finally lost your mind."
We'll show you a most unusual and very popular wedding venue in the middle of Montana, the Barnshin. They call it the cowboy breakfast. Hot cereal and pancake mix made right here in Montana. We'll take a bite and tour the factory, coming up on today's Wild West. The Wild West. It's still out there. And we'll show you how to find it. This is today's Wild West.
There's just nothing cooler than a baby colt in the world.
Springtime in Montana, and a newborn foal is spending its first days of life on the Wald Ranch near Lodge Grass. It's sticking very close to Mom. How old is that guy?
Oh, shoot, 2-3 days, yeah. And if you had to catch him, good luck. As soon as they can stand, they can run away.
The baby is among 70 or so horses that make their home on the ranch Nate Wald and his wife TJ call home.
That little guy's gonna be roan too.
Where they raise cattle with Nate's brother and pedigree American quarter horses with their son Jackson.
I want to raise a really good ranch horse. I like a horse with enough size that you can cover a lot of country. You can rope on them. You can rope big cattle on them. Hello, sister. Disposition too. I like horses that are friendly, that are athletic and have a lot of go, that are gentle, that they'll relax. You can drop the reins and they're going to stand there and wait for you. And that's what I'm trying to have, is just a good all-around ranch type horse.
Nate's parents run a bed and breakfast on the ranch as well, which we'll visit in just a bit. You may have seen this real deal cowboy when his portrait by acclaimed Western artist Carrie Ballantyne graced the cover of Western Horseman magazine. And Cowboy Artists of America painter Lauren Entz captured what Nate is best known for, making braided rawhide cowboy gear, as a member of the prestigious Traditional Cowboy Arts Association, known as TCA for short.
I'm really happy when I'm doing something with my hands, whether it's riding a horse or whether it's working with string.
Nate's work is prized by both working cowboys, who use his braided rawhide reins, bozels, and other gear every day, and collectors, who purchase them as works of art. But whether the piece hangs on the wall of an office or a ranch tack room, it's all usable gear.
Form, function, dimensions, all of those kinds of things, they're going to be the same, because I won't compromise that thing should work on a horse, because that's what I'm building.
Nate got bit by the rawhide braiding bug while working on a ranch outside Bozeman near the end of his college days.
Got a book and started fooling around and braiding up some simple stuff and trying different knots and things. When I graduated from college, I just came back to the ranch and just kept braiding from there on out.
Nate's been at it ever since.
And this is the first pair of Rommel reins that I ever built. I really got interested in it, and you know, I didn't have any spare time much anymore. I was at my bench trying to get better and finding people that knew more than I did and trying to see what they were doing.
The technique of braiding is relatively simple.
I mean, you can teach somebody to do that fairly quickly.
But there are no shortcuts to mastering the craft of creating braided rawhide cowboy gear.
To make a braid that's consistent and even and really well done, tight enough, but not too tight. Each string is pulled as tight as the one above it. That takes a lot of muscle memory and just a lot of hours of doing that same thing over and over again. I think where some people get off track is they want to do what somebody like me can do after 30 years right away, and it doesn't work that way.
Rawhide is not leather. It's braided string made from a raw hide, and Nate makes his own.
When you make the rawhide, you have quality control from the start. Let's just put it right over here. There's a lot to making good rawhide and cutting good string.
It starts, of course, with a raw hide, like this one dropped off at the ranch while we were visiting. Nate either soaks the hide in lye to remove the hair or scrapes it off as the hide is stretched out to dry.
Which is a simple, old school technique, but it makes a unique hide for working stuff that I kind of like the looks of.
So that becomes this.
Yep.
Either way, this is the result.
You've got a raw hide.
A board stiff, raw hide. After being re-moistened overnight,
I'll go round and round one of these with a draw.
the hide is cut into strips.
Round and round and cut this whole hide up into a strip, maybe that wide. Like this. This would be a circle of hide cut into a string we call a soga.
That soga then goes through several more cuts and refinement.
So for thickness, you'll use what we call a splitter. Then we end up with, this is what the string that I'll actually braid something with or tie.
And then the real work begins.
And then I braided 16 strings over the top of that to cover and to make that all uniform.
To braid that raw hide into reins, headstalls, and other gear,
Probably 20 hours in a hackamore.
that whether for working cowboys or cowboy art, could all be used on a horse.
Everything revolves around the horse. We love the horse and we love to work with them, and we love the tradition that all of these things are all part of. And so when we can preserve that, then we've done something.
Braiding is meticulous, time-consuming, detail-oriented work, but for Nate, it's never boring.
When people learn you braid rawhide, they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm way too impatient. But to me, when I'm at my bench, that's when I'm the most relaxed. Your mind kind of shuts down. You're doing it, your skill, and you're working at it, and that's a calming thing for me.
The knots used in braiding actually originate from those sailors once used, who then passed them on to ancient horsemen before they made their way to the American West.
Split it here and just do 2 on either side and then put it back together and do all 4.
Rawhide braiding is among the old-time cowboy skills that not long ago were in danger of dying out.
When I first got interested in rawhide 30 years ago, man, you could count on one hand and probably less guys that were doing it. Even fewer of those guys would show anybody anything. And it was that way with saddle makers. It was that way like the silversmiths and the bit and spur guys. And those trades were slowly being lost.
Since its founding in 1998, the Traditional Cowboy Arts Association has done much to turn that around through its annual exhibition and sale that celebrates these crafts as fine collectible art, and mentoring and educational programs to pass these skills on to the next generation.
Everything I know, I'm willing to tell anybody that asks. I mean, I get phone calls and emails and things all the time, and I don't feel like I have any secret at all, other than that I've just worked hard at it. This is a J. Adcock.
Nate uses the gear he makes and that of other craftsman friends that he often trades with.
That's a Dale Harwood.
Dale Harwood.
Yep.
His tack room, where he keeps his saddles, bridles, and other gear, is a fascinating collection of some of the finest equipment a horseman could own.
A lot of guys will 2-rein their horse with a little hackamore and a half-breed bit before they put them in a full spade.
From a cowboy culture with a language all its own.
There's good hands in Texas riding split reins and grazer-type bits.
We put some of that gear to use as we saddle up for a ride on the ranch. Nate needs to check out some cows, and I'm checking out the scenery. This unspoiled Montana ranch is magnificently beautiful, and Nate's horses are something special to ride.
I'm no expert, I'm always learning, but this is about the nicest trained horse I ever sat on. I mean,
Well, that's a compliment, thanks.
Those 70 horses on the ranch at any given time include 2 stallions, 20 broodmares, and others in various stages of life and training.
You know, I like to sell young horses to guys that are cowboying out there and really using them, you know, working on big places, starting their own colts, making really nice horses, and they like them.
And Nate's rawhide quarter horses are earning a good reputation in Montana's ranching community.
That's what makes me really happy. Guys like our son, you know, that's out there working on the big ranches and riding their own horses and starting them, and they like those colts a lot because they're athletic and can do the job, but they're not something that's stupid and going to run you off a cliff or you know, buck all the time. They just go to work.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, my wife and I will be spending the night at the Wald Ranch Bed and Breakfast, run by Nate's parents, which always includes dinner as well.
It's 50 miles to a restaurant.
And some of them will say that's why we came here, because we saw that you'd get a homemade meal.
Richard has been coming here from Europe for 23 years.
It's the country, it's the horses, it's the way of living.
When he comes, it's almost like he's back home again.
Richard has been grandfathered in for horseback riding, which the B&B no longer offers. But there's plenty else to see and do.
A lot of them like to just hike up in the hills there. You saw how pretty it is when you get up there. As far as you can see, you can walk, you know. And so they do a lot of just seeing what's on the ranch.
Most people just stay a night or two on their way to Yellowstone or some other cool destination in this part of the West. It's a cozy, comfortable, Western-themed place to stay. And while it seems far from the world comes here to visit,
If this table could talk.
which can make for some lively dinner conversation.
We had two couples. One couple was a commercial fisherman, and across the table from them were ocean biologists. And you should have heard the interchange in conversation.
His home away from home also looks like a Western art gallery starring the Wald family, the perfect subject for a Western artist like Carrie Ballantyne. Nate and TJ's nearby home is also richly decorated with both Western art, starring the family, and fine braided rawhide gear.
That is just a stunning headstall.
During our visit, we discover TJ is an artist as well,
This is what I love to do. Yeah, horse gear.
creating beautiful beaded bracelets, jewelry, and decorated bridles, some with a bit of help from Nate.
I just put a series of them to break up the beadwork.
Everything I bead, I like Nate to put something on.
You take a little persuasion.
He's really easy. Well, if I sell it, it'll be on someone's horse. If I don't sell it, it'll be on my horse or my son's horse or my husband's horse.
Between the beading, braiding, horses and cattle, and the B&B, it's obvious the Walds don't spend much time watching TV.
You don't get bored out here, I'm sure.
No. You don't have to look for much to do, but we're not running around crazy. I mean, it's a good lifestyle, I think. If I can go trot a pasture like this in the morning and check on some cattle or doctor something or do that part and then get in the shop for the rest of the day, that's a pretty good day.
It's a nice life in Montana for the Walds, their guests, and the horses lucky enough to grow up here.